Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Empowering Leadership webinar by Step Up Network. My name is Olivia Saunders, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm really excited to kind of take you through the session today and just to speak to some of our wonderful guests and kind of take in all of their knowledge as well. So just a little bit about Step Up Network. If you're new to us or you've been here before, just to really remind you about our vision, mission and values. So our vision, a diverse, inclusive and flexible education system where educators can really step up and thrive. And that was one of the main reasons that Step Up was set up, and you will feel that vision throughout the events that we run and definitely this webinar today. And our mission is to enable educators to step up and become successful and sustainable leaders. And the ways that we feel that we do that is through our values that you can see here on the screen. So connection, we think it's really important. And when we're thinking about our speakers and we're curating our events, we really think about the importance of connection and how we can bring people together. We really champion empowerment, and that's quite fitting given the session today, but really having those honest conversations about those thought-provoking topics that are sometimes not often thought about when thinking about stepping up to the next role. And then really, really important value for us is that idea of impact. So really kind of supporting people to think about the impact that they're having and spurring them on till the end of the academic year and thinking about the impact that they can have in the following year as well. So just a little bit of a flash on our activity this year. It's been a massive year for the organisation, and you can see here, won't go through every bullet point on here, but there's been a number of events and activities that we've carried out. And I think it's really important for our members to know this so they understand what they can be involved in, what they can be part of, and what's on offer to them. So just to pull out some things, we have regular events and CPD, obviously the webinar that you're attending today. We also partnership work with various different organisations. You can see some of them listed there. And we've also begun as well a really exciting kind of new feature to collate the success stories. So people that have been part of the network, have engaged with the CPD, have engaged with those networking opportunities, and how that has kind of elevated them to think about their next step and to gain that role that they've wanted. So in terms of our year of impact, some kind of really impressive figures here. And I know something that kind of the network committee and Ben, the founders, look really proud of in terms of bringing it back to that value and that idea of impact. So just to pull out some of these statistics, 100% satisfaction rate from kind of CPDs and events that we've hosted is really kind of champions the wonderful work that the network is carrying out. 255 tickets sold to our events, kind of in-person events and those online events as well. And then also 3,200 followers across our platforms. So I think the numbers are important, but I think for us, it's really about that reach that we can have as well. And that number in the centre, 84,150 young people impacted from the various different kind of initiatives and leaders that we've touched through the work that we've been doing is absolutely amazing. So in terms of today's event, so our impact, essentially in terms of why we are, so before we run on to that, so just a final kind of thing to champion is our impact, again, bringing it back to that value. So we've got our accolades that we're really, really proud of, and two categories that we were nominated for this year, which are really, really prestigious and really recognise the strong work from us as a CIC. So then moving on to today's event. So focusing on our why are we essentially running this event? I think leadership is incredibly challenging, and often I think leaders are portrayed as being confident. They're people that don't have doubts, they're strong, they don't have struggles. And really, when we actually do consider that role of leadership, it is far more human than that. And I think it's really important that we reflect and kind of have that vulnerability and think about the whole idea of empowering and the fact that being vulnerable and personal well-being, that's not a sign of weakness, and it is very much a component of leadership. So it's really important that we kind of shine a light on that and have the discussions that's required for that, and really think about the essential foundations that are needed for sustainable and impactful practice. And essentially, this session is run for educators or leaders at various different stages of kind of their career to really think about some of those things that come up within leadership when we are potentially having that self-doubt, when we do feel that imposter syndrome, when sometimes it is really difficult to kind of dig deep and think about those ideas of self-belief and emotional resilience, because it's really important to reflect that education is challenging, and that sometimes that confident and strong leader does have those other areas that we need to consider as well. So they're going to be the main focuses of today's event. So what will we be exploring as part of this event, and what will you get from this event? So we're going to have two guests, which I'm really excited to kind of hand over to them in a couple of minutes time. And they're going to be covering a number of themes of ones that you see here. So one theme is going to be understanding and overcoming that idea of imposter syndrome. Also really thinking about the role of authenticity and kind of what that means in terms of credible and kind of being a value-led leader. This idea of vulnerability, which I mentioned earlier, and how that can potentially build trust and connection with those that you're around, and also that key thing of influence as well, which is quite critical when being a leader. The keyword of well-being, and I think really important within education, like how do you protect your own well-being whilst navigating leadership and the pressures that come along with that. And then also reframing this idea of confidence and thinking about your own professional identity and what does that mean as a leader. And what we really hope is that by the end of this session, you'll leave with like a really renewed perspective and reassurance that you're not alone, and that you will have some really tangible strategies that you can walk away with to support your leadership journey and also your personal wellness journey as well. And before we kind of move on to kind of the main body of the session, just want to give a thank you to the Institute of Leadership. They are one of our kind of main funders and really champion the work that we do. And given the fact that Step Up Network is about that journey of leadership, whatever stage you're at, it's really fitting that they're an organisation that sees strength in what we do and what we offer. So just a little bit about the program here. We are running to time, which is great. A little bit ahead of time, actually. And then at 10 past 10, so a little bit earlier than that, we will have our first guest, Claire Platt, who I'll say a little bit more about in a minute. Then at 10:25, we'll have our second guest, Helen Veru, who I will also do a little bit of introduction for as well. Then we'll have a Q&A. So if you do have any questions throughout, please hold on to those and kind of pop them in the chat or pop them through, and we can kind of get those answered for you. And then there will just be a final close from myself, just speaking a little bit about some of the things that we've got coming up as Step Up Network and just how you can get involved if this session has really piqued your interest. Okay, great. So our first guest, as I've said, is Claire. I'm just going to take a moment to read out a little bit about Claire, just so everyone knows who you are. Hi, Claire. Great to have you here.
Morning.
Good morning. So Claire Platt is an executive leadership coach with over 25 years of experience in senior leadership and education. She works with senior leaders, head teachers, and exec leaders to navigate complexity, strengthen leadership confidence, and lead with greater clarity and impact. Claire combines empathy with constructive challenge to enable thoughtful, courageous leadership. So from your little bio, Claire, and just from my little stalk of you, I'm very excited to kind of hear kind of all of your learnings from the wonderful journey that you've had within education, and just some of your learnings around some of the key themes of like imposter syndrome. I think is going to be really interesting. So I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm going to hand straight over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Okay, so morning, everybody. It's brilliant to be here. And I think it's important that I start off by saying I'm going to be speaking about imposter syndrome, and there is never an event that I speak at that I don't feel imposter syndrome. Olivia mentioned a moment ago the importance of being vulnerable, but actually feeling that sense of imposter syndrome is totally normal. It just means that you're pushing yourself slightly outside your comfort zone. So hopefully my talk this morning will encourage you to recognize that imposter syndrome is not necessarily a barrier. It's just a healthy feeling, a healthy self-protection factor to ensure that, yes, to ensure that you have the energy, the adrenaline to do something well. I don't know. Thank you, Ben. So yeah, so what is imposter syndrome? It's that voice. We all have this voice in our head, right? What if they find out I'm not as good as I think I am? It's on recurring loop when we put ourselves out there, when we take a risk. And yes, I've had a long career in education. But all sorts of things happen along the way that make you think, am I still relevant? Do I still have something to offer other people? So it's something that we all have. But as I said earlier, it's not about you being a failure or incapable. It just means that you're working, you're working at the edge. You're making sure that you're pushing yourself, which is a really positive thing to do. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so I just wanted to start off with this diagram because I find this really, really helpful. Very often people think, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until I've got the confidence to do this. I'm going to wait until I've got the experience to do it. I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to put myself out there yet. But what I've learned through my years in schools is that actually you get the confidence from doing it. So so basically you have to do it anyway. That makes you think, oh great, I can do this. You might get some positive feedback from colleagues, and actually that's the way that your confidence grows. So yeah, you don't have to feel absolutely ready. It's not about having every I dotted and every T crossed. It's actually taking action when you're not quite there yet. Okay, so let's think about what it's not. Imposter syndrome is not just you thinking, oh, I just got lucky, I think I've often observed with school teachers, school leaders, that sometimes we have a level of humility that is not actually that helpful. Because we're there to serve children, young people and their families. We often think about ourselves as a servant leader. And actually it's important to recognize your own growing competence, experience, and not to just dismiss that. And I've got friends from outside the world of education who are quite surprised by this, when they attend an event where it's mixed between people who are educators and people who are not. This level of humility can sometimes be really unhelpful. So yeah, so don't diminish yourself. Don't say, I just got lucky. Oh, they've made a mistake choosing me. I need to know more before I can speak up. Those things are really unhelpful. And I always believe that what we tell ourselves is what we then become. So it's really important that we tell ourselves more positive things, especially if you are going to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So tell yourself, I do have relevant experience. I can do this. People will be interested in what I can offer. Okay, so when does it show up? Well, as I said earlier, it shows up pretty much every time that you push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So there's some ideas here on the screen. Some of them are obvious, when you start a promotion, for example, or when you're underrepresented in the room. But otherwise, it could be things like when you're returning from sickness leave or maternity leave, when you've had a break. So yesterday I spoke at the Festival of Education, which was great, really loved it. But I haven't spoken at a venue like that for a while actually. And like I said earlier, I thought, can I do this? And thankfully I could, and it went fine. But when you're returning, when you've had a break from something, it often shows up. So I'm imagining that we all do this, where we focus on what went wrong rather than what went right. So all of these times you can really beat ourselves up. But let me repeat what I said earlier, that self-talk is really important. Don't tell yourself that you did badly. try and recognize when you've done well. I'm not talking about becoming arrogant, far from it, but I think it's about recognizing genuinely when we have made a good contribution, when we have made a positive difference. So what's the risk with imposter syndrome? Well, the main risk is that you don't do it because you don't feel ready. You just don't do it. And if you don't take those risks, if you don't overcome that imposter syndrome, you're not going to go from that promotion. You're not going to gain that new experience that then opens new doors to you. So it's so important that when you recognize that you're feeling symptoms of imposter syndrome, that you actually can name that and think, okay, this is imposter syndrome rearing up here. I mustn't let it stop me, because actually, if this stops me, I'm not going to achieve my goal to do whatever it might be. So it's really important that it doesn't stop you going for that role. It doesn't stop you speaking up. And that I find fascinating as well, because in certain rooms, I think we have a voice, we feel confident to speak, but then we find ourselves in another room, perhaps, where we are underrepresented, and suddenly our voice is gone. I've certainly experienced that as well. So it's trying to recognize that those things are going to be more risky situations for you, but you just have to be prepared for that and do the best you can just to overcome that anyway. Okay, so in summary, really, from the previous slide, it's not about saying, that I don't need to have imposter syndrome before I can actually take action. It's recognizing everybody has imposter syndrome, but not everybody takes notice. Some people park it. Say thank you. That's a helpful physical response to recognize that I'm potentially at threat here. So it's giving me some heightened sense of, nerves can actually be a really positive thing to drive that energy. Okay. So imposter syndrome, it's not necessarily about having confidence. It's about actually being brave and being courageous and giving something a try. Okay, so I've already mentioned this first one. You need to be, first strategy is to name that voice. I've got a friend actually who has given her imposter syndrome a comedy name. So she'll say, I can't remember what the name is exactly, but just say it's Deirdre. She'll say, right, Deirdre, I can see you've turned up again. No, you're not going to stop me today. So however you do it, recognize it, name it, and try and diminish it. In terms of that self-talk, don't tell yourself about every little flaw. Collect evidence. Look at the career you've had so far. Look at the impact you've had on children, young people and families. Look at the difference you've made in your school as an aspiring leader or as a leader. You don't need to seek reassurance for doing this. You just need to look at, what you've already got, if you like, in your pocket. Replace that thinking I'm not ready with what is the next brave thing that I'm going to do. And competence is not about ticking every desirable on the list. It's about taking imperfect action, even when you know that you're not 100% on point. So I'm sure you're aware of the research that came out a few years ago about when people apply for jobs. And there was quite a significant difference between male and female reaction to applying for jobs. So men were likely to go through a job spec, look at the essential and the desirable features and think, okay, I've got 60-70%. I'll take a punt on this. I'll go for that promotion. Whereas women were most likely to try and check off every single essential and all of the desirables before they would even put their hat in the ring and have a go, which then ultimately contributed to that gender imbalance around leadership as well. So thinking about everything I've said so far, I wonder whether this could be something that perhaps people put in the comments or the questions. So thinking about what you've got coming up in the remaining weeks of term next week, what is a brave thing that you would be able to do if you stopped waiting to feel ready? How could you push yourself outside of that comfort zone? So if this has been helpful, then here's my contact details, or please do connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. That QR code will take you to my contacts. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Olivia, I was a little bit fast.
No, yeah, you're absolutely fine. I feel that you shared some great kind of little nuggets there in terms of, I think I really enjoyed the idea of that, really like owning the imposter syndrome and just thinking that it does evoke a bit of a physical response and you do feel a certain type of way. But acknowledging that and kind of accepting that everyone feels that way, because I think sometimes it can be so consuming that you don't really think that other people feel that way.
Yeah, you think about politicians or famous people, they are still feeling it. It is just a human biological reaction to fear, actually. The fear of the unknown, or the fear of the new. I think the one thing I haven't said is, obviously there is preparation. So you don't have to be totally ready, but you do have to do some preparation. So you can't just think, okay, I'm going to ignore my imposter syndrome, turn up for something, and then be totally unprepared and then cause a failure and then, self-perpetuate then a myth that you're not good enough. So, it's a balance between doing some preparation, but not having to be perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess as well, the other thing that I found really interesting that you said is that I know there's a lot of research looking at gender and kind of male approaches to things and female.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting what you were saying about job applications, because I think I've very recently been like applying for jobs and looking at kind of different things to do. And it is funny how potentially a female has a certain lens of looking at jobs, whereas a male to think that they're only thinking, 60% of this I can do, but I'm still going to have a punt at it. That is, it's quite interesting. And it almost, it makes me feel like it's a bit of a driving force for me to take risks and look at things a bit differently. Like, why am I trying to have 100% when really is that always required?
I think I find it fascinating as well. And it's quite a large study. I think it came out 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. It so resonates with me as a woman, because I think often as women, we look at something and we think, okay, I've got to get totally everything before I'm going to put my neck on the line here. But we know it from life, right? I know we're massively generalizing here about genders, and there's a lot of diversity between people. But how often do we see guys just having a go and being a bit more brave actually about things? And I think really we need to take a leaf out of their book as women, especially women in education, because we are in the majority, aren't we, as women? And actually, don't undermine ourselves in those situations. What's the worst that can happen? You may not get it. Okay, well, that's fine. Nothing lost. Experience will come along with it, which will be useful.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess we're going to have a Q&A towards the end of the session. And I know if there's not questions in the comments, I will definitely be firing a few more your way just to get a little bit more insight. But thank you so much for that presentation, Claire. And we will as well kind of share your socials and things after this so people can connect with you if they want to do so. Thank you so much. Great stuff. So what I am going to do now is I'm going to move on to our next guest, who is Helen Veroux. So I'm hoping that she's going to join us. Hi, Helen. Oh, you're just on mute, Helen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Lovely to see you. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. I just want to make sure that I give you the introduction that you deserve and kind of run through who you are, just so our viewers get a little bit of an understanding of kind of your experience, your expertise. And then I'm going to hand over to you just for a short session on a couple of our key themes today. So Helen is an education consultant, speaker, author, podcaster, and transformational leadership coach. With over 15 years of experience in education, she has worked globally and established 2 online academies. One academy empowers parents of preteens and teens to foster confident, healthy, innovative, and purpose-driven individuals, while the other focuses on developing student leadership in schools. In the ever-evolving landscape of education, faith-based school leaders, governors, and educators face a critical gap, one that leaves them disconnected, lacking a unified space to grow in wisdom, support one another, and ignite meaningful change. The absence of intentional faith-driven dialogue among these leaders stifles opportunities for collaboration, innovation, and the infusion of moral and spiritual wisdom into both faith-based and secular education. So I'm really excited, Helen, to hand over to you now, just for you to give us a little bit of insight on empowerment in leadership.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to me. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to share about something that is very meaningful to me. I believe that now is a time that we need to focus on the importance of building wise educational leaders in schools. And I believe that in today's educational climate, school can no longer afford to really function as institutions only. I feel that they must become spaces of transformation where leaders are cultivated, communities are empowered, and where every stakeholder really is equipped with the tools to thrive. And that's why I came up with the WISE leadership framework. And I will talk about that and how we can actually bring purpose, healing, innovations in schools communities. So I believe that before we start talking about that, we need to really identify the major challenges that schools are facing today. And it's something that is, I feel, global, and we need to address these issues. I believe that student behavior is a main concern. 70% of teachers identify student behavior as an issue. And many schools experience increasing behavior challenges, including low resilience, lack of respect, emotional dysregulation, poor engagement in classrooms, in the community. And I feel that these issues really affect the learning of the students, the teacher well-being, and overall the school culture. So I feel that we need to really start understanding these issues because it allows us to really take responsibility and really focus on how we can improve positive behavior and belonging in school communities. The second issue is attendance. There is persistent absenteeism, and this has become a biggest challenge in education because students who really miss schools are more likely to fall behind academically. They also struggle socially, and they are disengaged in their learning. So really improving attendance, I feel that will require a bigger understanding of how we can actually create an environment where every student really feels safe and valued and also motivated to attend school. The third issue is also staff well-being and retention. And I believe that this is a big issue because schools are facing increasing levels of teacher burnout, workload pressures, recruitment challenges, staff turnover. And I've been working globally. This is a major concern in many schools that I actually worked for. And leaders are really expected to manage more complex demands nowadays. And we need to really start investing in how we can build more purpose-driven leadership, a staff well-being, and a school that is really collaborative in bringing a culture that is essentially focused on retaining their educators, building resilience, and really ultimately creating school communities where everybody feels heard and valued. And the last thing, a major issue that I feel education is facing is also parent engagement. School struggles with parents who are not really engaged in their kids' life, and they want to really encourage those parents attend meetings, workshops, school events, and parents are less and less involved. Let's be real. Sometimes they are not really involved in the opportunity to support their children's learning, behavior, and well-being, and all of that is reduced overall. So I believe there is not really a simple solution for that. Okay, but I feel that we need to start thinking about a different way that we can lead wiser. This is why, for me, wisdom is so important, because wisdom is allowing you to see the things that you can't see in your school. As an educator for more than 17 years, I use this to really start seeing what is the need in my school community, in my student life, even in my colleagues' life, where I really branch out into understanding how I can nurture a positive relationship with them, and I can actually improve the behavior in my lessons and in my community. So let's dive really into understanding the leadership gap in schools. Okay, leadership, I feel, is there is a big gap in schools because there are ineffective leadership structures where really leaders' roles in schools are focused on performance rather than really allowing them to become visionaries and become transformational leaders. And it really leads to sometimes burnout, confusion, stagnations. And I feel that the staff are overworked, as I said before, and the leadership sometimes lacks of direction. And there is also weak connections as well in terms of the staff, the parent, the students. And we need to start building strong foundation where trust, open communication, and shared purpose and collaboration becomes really the school culture. And we need to build as well a more thriving culture where we allow every stakeholder to really move from compliance, from creativity instead of compliance, and from faith instead of fear. And for the school to thrive, we need to really offer, I feel, trauma-informed and more values-filled and purpose-filled environments where all the stakeholders are heard, their voice matters, and this is where the transformation is actually taking place. So this is what I came up with when I talk about wise educational leaders. I want you to understand that a wise educational leader is really not defined by their title, but by the influence and their intentionality in how they build and foster a very unique environment in their school. So the W stands for wholeness. I feel that it is important that we need to start focusing on the person itself, the whole person, the whole parent, the whole senior leader, the whole teacher. And wholeness is all about really where are you in healing from your ACEs, your advanced childhood experience. And I feel that the more you actually grow into healing and you get whole, you are able to connect differently and emotionally with people around you, and you're able to see what you can't see with your physical eyes. And the I stands for inspiration. We need to start bringing inspiration into schools. We need to bring to inspire the teachers, because they are the main focus, the main motor. We focus on students, which is great, but if there is no teachers, there would be no school really, because the teachers are very important in the evolvement of the school community. When you care about your teachers, when you inspire your teachers to really start growing into themselves, and they will really empower people around them. But it all starts, I feel, as well, with school leaders who are being inspired, who are growing into healing themselves, because they can be that person that their school community needs. The S stands for self-reflecting. I feel like it's important as leaders that we really take time to pause, to assess, to grow, and to become lifelong learners in our school, and just thinking about what we can do better in our life, in our school, so we can actually make a difference in the parents' life, the student life, the staff life. Because when you pause and you ask yourself the right question, you're able to really bring transformation around you. And the E stands for engaged, when you have an educational leader who is healed, who is inspired, who is self-reflecting, then they will become more engaged in their school communities. They will become more present. They will actually connect deeper with people, and they will actually focus on really finding their alignments. And that's one of the things that I feel that sometimes is missing in schools. Sometimes people are in the educational system for years just because they are scared of breaking up their comfort zone. They have been in that community because they don't want to grow, to evolve. But I feel that we need to start asking ourselves the right question, which is, are we aligned, okay, with where we are in our journey? If you feel as an educator that you need more in your journey, you want to evolve, you want to grow, I feel that this is a time where you need to start shifting your mindset and become engaged with yourself. And when you become engaged with yourself, you're able to really make the right decisions for yourself and your community. And it's something that school should focus more in terms of bringing empowerment in schools. Empowerment where students learn self-leadership, where staff really grow into leadership developments, and also coaching, where parents feel valued and are the partners in the progress of their kids, their children. So the WISE framework really is thinking about the person in his whole entire entity, where they become aligned with themselves so they can be able to connect and empower the people around them. And I also believe that school leaders are the one responsible for that. If you are not growing into that healing, that inspiration yourself, that self-reflection, and also ultimately, you won't be able to engage with your staff. You won't be able to engage with your students. So yes, we want to perform academically. We want to create good results. But is it really what we really need nowadays in school communities? I believe that we need more wisdom. We need more people who really step into self, and when they really heal from their trauma, they're more able to actually connect with other people. So I believe that students are the future leaders of tomorrow. They're not just pupils. Teachers, I believe that, are community builders. They are culture shapers. They are not just curriculum deliverers. They need to really start being valued and encouraged into really finding their true self, so they can actually make a bigger impact in your school. And I believe that parents are also must be invited into the process to partner as collaborators in shaping school identities. And the focus is really about growth. It's about purpose. It's about trauma-informed practices. It's about staff well-being. It's about transformational leadership training, not just another CPD, but a CPD where people are being transformed and leave the session with something to take from. So what are you building as an educator? What are you building as a school leader? What are you building as a parent? I feel that we need to really become centers of transformation, where every stakeholders really are empowered to lead with clarity, with courage, and with connection. So I want to give some practical ways, for example, to improve behavior attendance. And for example, as an educator or even as a school leader, you can give some daily well-being questions. You can as well weekly focus on attendance and behavior to your students who are at risk, and really encourage them in their journey. You can celebrate attendance, you can celebrate resilience, you can celebrate leadership, even in your staff, with your teachers. I have a podcast, and there is this teacher who is from the States. She actually created a culture in her school community where she focuses on teacher appreciation. And I feel that the whole school had a success because she really focused on appreciating what everybody was doing, and it's needed. It's needed because when people feel valued and appreciated, and they understand how they can help them to grow into wisdom, this is where the shift happens. So even for increasing parents' engagement, what we can do, you can create like monthly parent connects. You can do it online. I feel it's better online. You can do it in person as well, from time to time. But you need to really build something where parents are connected together. You can create ambassadors to welcome new families. You can also send positive messages, okay, for student success, not only focusing on the problem and the crisis that the child is actually focusing in school. And even for staff well-being, what can we do? Reflective coaching sessions for staff. I feel it's so powerful because they are able to reflect on themselves. They're able to reflect on their journey as a teacher. And if they don't enjoy teaching anymore and they don't want to be part of your school, I feel that this is okay as well, because you're giving them another a solution to really evolve in their career, and they will thank you for that, because you are really allowing those leaders around you to really grow into self and finding who they truly are. So I feel appreciating, again, as I was saying, recognition programs for teachers. And also you can use a WISE framework where you really focus on wholeness, inspiration, self-reflecting, and engaging tools that can help them to really become leaders that makes a difference around them. So if you want to actually connect with me, you can connect with me on my Instagram at The Keys for Success. And yeah, this is my 2 cents.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for that, Helen. I feel there was so much in there that was super useful. And I think having a structure, a framework to follow as well, I thought was really powerful. I think often when you're in school settings, it's really difficult. I'm just thinking about your W here, the whole person, because I think that really resonated with me, because I think sometimes it's really difficult to think about the whole person, especially when you think about students. And you often get teachers just looking at their behavior. They're not thinking about what causes that behavior, what's maybe going on for them on a whole outside of the behavior. What's their personality? What are they interested in? What causes these things? Where do they come from? It's about kind of, one, like you were saying, having that trauma-informed approach, but also that level of curiosity. I think sometimes it's really difficult as leaders to have that curiosity, because you're often conflicted with, like, I've got this to do, I've got to do this paper for SLT, or I've got to deliver this curriculum, like you were saying. But I guess as leaders, you're not just curriculum deliverers, there's those other hats that you have to wear. So I think there was just so many learnings from what you said there. So thank you so much for what you've shared. In terms of kind of accessing the framework and finding more out about that, would you say that Instagram is the best place to find you for that?
You can connect with me and see what I do. I have I also help educators to step into building their own educational consultancy, because that's what I've been doing as well. And I feel it's important that as an educator, you don't just focus on just impacting the classroom. I feel there is so much more inside of us. There is so much more that we can do to serve the world. And I feel in school, they always put us in a box that, okay, you're just an educator, this is your career. And we sometimes are burned out, we're overwhelmed because we want more, but we don't know where to start, we don't know what to do. And there is so much things to do, to offer to parents, so much things to offer to students. And when you give them, as I was talking about, inspiration, they start thinking differently and say, you know what? Wow, I could do that. Really, I could really branch out into doing something more. But if you don't give them, you don't bring self-awareness to where they are in their journey. You just offer them with a new solution. They will always focus on what they know. And entrepreneurship is a big thing for me. So I want everybody to really step into it, so they can really just feel fulfilled, because there is so much growth in it. And the school system don't really offer that as well. So this is what I love to share as well, so they can share with me. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Helen, and thank you so much for that session. What we're going to do now is we are just going to move into a little bit of a Q&A. So welcome Claire back. Hi Claire, good to have you back with us. And just if for any of our listeners that are listening live, if you do have any questions, if you could just pop them into the webinar chat and we can try and get those answered for you. At the moment, I don't think there's any in there. So just to see if we do get any through, I've got a couple here kind of prepared. Just kind of hoping that your answers will give some of our watchers who are thinking about that next leadership step some nuggets of advice. What's some advice that you wish someone had given you earlier on in your leadership journey? Helen. Oh, Claire, you're going to go? I was going to go to Helen first just because Claire looked like she was still thinking.
I am thinking. It's hard. It's a long time ago, isn't it? I'm not sure. I guess I've been really lucky, but probably the biggest boost that I had, and maybe this is not so much a nugget for people who are looking for promotion, maybe it might be a nugget for their colleagues, but the biggest boost I had when I was early on in my career was somebody put in my pigeonhole in the staff room 1 day a week secondment to be a local authority consultant.
Okay.
So they didn't have a conversation with me. They just put it in my pigeonhole. And at that point in my journey, I would have still been in my late 20s at that point. It's going back to the imposter syndrome. I'm not sure I would have looked for that. I wouldn't have been seeking that opportunity, but because somebody actually put it in my pigeonhole, that made me more curious. So I'm not sure. And then I did go for it, even though, as I say, I wasn't necessarily looking for it, but I thought, oh no, I'd really love to do this. So I'm not sure that's a nugget for individuals that are looking for promotion, but perhaps the people around them.
Yeah.
If you see something that you think might be perfect for one of your colleagues, if you're a leader, actually the best thing you can do as a leader is develop people in your team, even if that means that they're going to leave you and they get promoted to other schools. Yes. You know, one of the things I found most satisfying when I was a head, I've actually lost count, but I've had at least 5 of my colleagues go on to headship that I sort of promoted as in middle leadership or the leadership team. So I think that's a really great way of kind of paying it forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. I really agree with you. And I think by you doing that for someone else or for the people around you, it is showing leadership, isn't it? Because bringing it back to what Helen was saying earlier, it's you recognizing that whole person and noticing that they've got a talent or they've got a flair or an interest in a particular area and supporting them to make that next step, potentially when they don't know that they need that little nudge or that little support. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Great reflection. Thank you, Claire. And then over to you, Helen. What about you in terms of kind of something that you wish someone had said to you early on in your leadership journey or career?
I wish they had told me really to dream big, and to really become whoever you want to become. I grew up on an island because I'm French Caribbean, and I never really had any understanding of vision. I feel like most people in schools, they really like vision for themselves, for their life as well. They just do the day-to-day, but like I never had someone who could tell me, okay, what do you want for yourself? Like think about like dream big and envision the life that you want. We always focus on the present, which is great, but I feel that is something that I didn't have, and that's what I actually bring to people. I want them to start thinking, what do you really want for yourself? And sometimes it's hard to answer. It's hard to answer because you don't think about those questions. You don't. You go on a day-to-day life. You say you have some of the things you want, but it's not really precise. You don't have that conviction for yourself, and that's something that I work a lot on myself. And I wish someone would have told me that. And I say that in my school communities as well. I help them to see what they really want for themselves, to dream big, to have a vision for their life, and from then they will eventually get toward that vision. It's the same way when you travel. If you don't know where you're going, you can't take the steps to know where you're going. So I feel this is the part that is missing.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Helen. No, I totally agree with you. I think one of the things sometimes with educators is that we're in a profession where you're often putting other people first. And I think that sometimes can be a kind of deficit to yourself, because you don't always give yourself that space and that time to think about kind of what do you want, because you're serving the community, whether that's the parents, the students, or other people within the school. So yeah, I think that's really, really valid. I guess linked to that, and I think this will be the final question because of time, is just there's quite a lot of big themes that have been spoken about today, and you've both given really practical strategies. That's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for that. Linked to that, is there any kind of habit or routine that either you've developed yourself or that you would champion, that you think a leader should think about in terms of kind of thinking about developing their practice, but also when thinking about the next step as well?
Shall I take that first?
Yeah.
I refer to this, but this is something I genuinely do. I probably look crazy. That idea of self-talk, before you do something brave, and by self-talk, I don't mean rehearsing on an endless loop and not sleeping, being up all night. What I mean is, if I've gone for it's been a while since I've done this, but like a job interview, or I'm doing something brave or scary, I will look in the mirror and go, you've got this. You can do this. Think about what you've done before. Think about all the things that you've got in that back pocket. Think about what you can talk about. So, even though I've been in education for more than 30 years, I still feel that, feel that fear, but do it anyway. And that self-talk, and I know it sounds crazy, and I'm not a qualified psychologist in any way, but I know that the research shows that your subconscious believes what you tell it. So if you smile at yourself in the mirror, you actually lift your mood, even if it's just incrementally. If you tell yourself that you can do it, you are more able and prepared to do it. And I do think it's not perhaps very British, speaking as somebody, sort of a white middle-aged woman, but actually it's kind of American, isn't it? But I really do believe in that self-talk. Just do it anyway. Just do it anyway.
Yeah, thank you for that, Claire. No, I totally agree with you. I think there's nothing better than I'm a very firm believer of a self-affirmation and kind of talking to yourself in the mirror, and really kind of, I speak for myself personally, it definitely does. It shifts your mood, makes you believe you can do things. So yeah, I think that's really powerful. Thank you so much for that. And then what about yourself, Helen?
Something that I do as well is, for me, posing. As I already talked about it, but posing and self-reflecting is very important to me. Really thinking about, are you aligned with where you are? Are you aligned with your values? Are you aligned with your vision? Are you aligned with yourself? Are you aligned with your identity? Are you aligned with your career? I feel that's something that people should constantly ask themselves, because if there is like a doubt or there is something that is bothering them, this is when the shift comes. This is when you actually start saying, okay, if this is how I feel, if I'm not really aligned with myself, this is maybe because I need to change. I need to shift. I need to really start seeing differently what I can do to better my life. And I feel like we need to be more in the present in that aspect, so we can actually bounce back into who we are called to be and where we're going.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Helen. Yeah, I really agree. I think it's really important, to constantly revisit, like, what is your purpose as a person, and then how does that purpose then weave into everything that you do? So like your career, how you live your life, your actions, even your passions. How do you weave your passions into your purpose? And like, I was at a session only this week where I was looking at that, and even myself, I had to think, like, is this still my purpose? Like, if I really, really, truly sit with this, like, is this the driving force of what I want to do within my life? Does it show up in other areas? It's a really key question. And I think we often don't ask it ourselves enough, which then leads to that lack of alignment, because you end up doing things or spending time with people or ending up in job roles that don't quite align with what your purpose is. And also the purpose can change at different stages of your life when you're in different positions. So yeah, I think it's really important to create that time for those key questions. I couldn't agree more.
And one more thing, I feel as well, sorry to say, I feel this is the kind of discussion we need to bring into schools. It is
Yeah.
not brought into schools at all.
Mm.
And that ideas, as we was talking about purpose and transformation and vision, and this is what we need, because this is what bring a full motivation to people to really start, as I was saying, digging deep down where they are in their journey. For parents, it can be that, for school leaders, and also for educators.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much for all of your reflections. And I think that kind of nicely brings us to time, which is great. Thank you both again so much for all of your contributions, and just for sharing kind of really key strategies with colleagues, and obviously sharing where they can reach out to you and connect with you as well. You've been wonderful guests, and it's been a great session.
Thank you, Olivia. You've been amazing too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
Okay, great, wonderful. So thank you everyone for joining today. There's just going to be a couple of quick call to actions from me now to just close the show, and just to share a little bit with you around kind of where you can find us, Step Up Network, how you can get involved, and what we've got coming up. So in terms of our events, our membership and our leadership curriculum as well. Thanks, Ben. So in terms of what we've got coming up, this year we are launching our membership offer. It is available to all. You can sign up for that. But I'm just going to run through kind of what is on offer generally, and then just how the membership then affects you as well. So open to all. So this is no matter whether you're a member or not. You might kind of come across our events on Eventbrite, on LinkedIn, where you can find us as well. And these events are open to everyone. And you can see what we have there. We do try and do our in-person events kind of across the UK in locations where we feel that people can reach them. So we're quite central and people can come from different locations to them. So you'll see there we've got an event in London, an event in Stoke-on-Trent, an in-person event in Birmingham and in Bristol as well. And you can see the dates there. So we're hoping that some of you will be able to come along to those events, and you can find out more information on our Eventbrite and LinkedIn, as I mentioned. And then we do also host our virtual webinars, for example, the one that you're on today. And we will be having a welcome webinar, which I would really advise people to attend on Saturday, the 26th of June. And that will just be to welcome colleagues to what our offer is going to be in 26-27, just so you've got an understanding. I think that's a really good one for you to attend. And then we do some calendar celebrations as well, as you can see there. And then if you are someone that's thinking a little bit about our membership offer, all of those face-to-face events will be accessible to you because they are open to all, but things that you will get in addition to those events are access to our professional wellbeing circles. So they will happen throughout the year and will be facilitated by a fantastic organisation called Nourish the Workplace. And while you'll get an opportunity to kind of really receive support around your wellbeing, and just cover some of those themes that we've discussed and looked at today as well, in terms of vulnerability, self-care, and so on and so forth. You will also get access to our flipped CPD sessions. So they will be covering topics which are from our leadership development curriculum, and then also coaching to be included in that as well. So really kind of supportive sessions that will really bring on your leadership development. And then you will also get access to our end of year celebration as well, which is a fantastic opportunity for networking, for kind of connecting with other people within the network. And then also there will be some coaching opportunities included within that as well. So it's a really fantastic offer. Cannot promote it more. Definitely, if you're thinking about kind of that next step in leadership, whether that's kind of middle leadership, senior leadership, or that headship offer as well. Next slide for me, please, Ben. And I've just spoke about this a little bit already, but there you can see kind of that membership only content that I've just spoke about. Just some things to add on to that here that you can see on the slide. There will be access to a WhatsApp group, which will have kind of other members in there from the network for that kind of peer-to-peer support, and also LinkedIn group as well. There will also be a really lovely feature that has worked quite well this year for some of our members, where there's a buddy/an accountability partner system. And what that essentially means is that there'll be someone else within the network that will be your buddy, that can act as that person that's a little bit of an accountability person for you, that might check in to see whether you've applied for that job that you said you was going to apply for, whether you've took that opportunity to lead maybe within your school setting. And it's really nice to just have that kind of professional challenge and support from that person. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, there'll be that community content, which is fantastic. And I think what is even more fantastic about this is that the membership will only cost you £24 for the year. So that's literally £2 per calendar month. And I know that there's very few things that I spend £2 on these days because everything's very expensive. So it's an absolute bargain, especially for investing in yourself in terms of your own leadership journey. And then linking to all of that, one of the things that we've really spent some time on this year is just making sure that the network is serving you. So we did a survey of all of our members and people that have accessed Step Up network events previously to really find out what do they need in terms of supporting them with their leadership journey and what are some of the areas that they really want to develop in. And responding to that survey, we've developed a leadership curriculum which addresses the 4 areas that you can see here on the slide. Becoming leader, so developing your leadership identity, progressing as a leader, so really supporting that career growth and developing those skills. How do you actually lead as a leader? And then that really important bit of sustaining as a leader, like education is challenging. How do we support that long-term well-being and that sustainable leadership? So just so you're aware, our calendar next year and all of the events I've spoken about will be based around this leadership curriculum. So we're being really intentional about the impact that we're trying to have with our network members and how we can really support them in their leadership journeys. And that's it from me. It's been my absolute pleasure to host for you today. And I really hope that you've found kind of some real nuggets of learning on this session and that you really reach out to some of our guests if you feel like you want a little bit more information. But it's been fantastic to host for you today. And I'll hopefully see you at a Step Up Network event in the future.